Kankri vantas. Ah, yes, the motherfucker. What a tool. I'm kidding, of course. Sort of. In the first line of my ranting about things as sent to my Tumblr inbox, which of course you can find if you go to my blog, officialeridanamperor.tumblr.com/ask. If you'd like to send me things to rant about, that's where you would do it. And this is the first topic in my series that I've started just now. So, kankri vantas. I was asked to talk about why he's a bad character. And I don't know if I'd say that he's a bad character. I mean, if Andrew Hussey was trying to write a douche, he did a good job. I consider bad characters to be characters that are poorly executed. Even a horrid villain is still a good character if that was the author's intention, at least in my opinion. Now, however, I'm more than happy to argue for the case of Kankri being an annoying character. Because he is an annoying character, and I have some stuff to quantify that. Now, first, I'd like to talk about whether or not he has good intentions, because that seems to be a topic of discussion. I've noticed before, when looking at other characters, such as any emperor on the face of the earth, let's go with Cronus because of the ancestors, but especially it goes well for Aridin, or even, you know, your boy Dualscar too. You'll have a very small group of people to which this doesn't apply, but generally most people will look at someone like Cronus and go, yeah, he's a douche. And you won't really hear a ton of argument except for the very small squadron of people who cry, misunderstood baby, which I'm not going to talk about them for the purpose of this. But most of the time when you're talking about Cronus, you know, it's very easy to point out textual pieces of evidence to go, yeah, he probably doesn't have everyone's best interests at heart. Okay, you're not going to look at him and go, that's an altruist right there. That's a guy who's concerned about the well-being of others. Mostly because there is that textual evidence. He just seems like kind of a douche. And when I say douche, I just mean someone who is looking out for number one. You know, could be sociopath, could be asshole, doesn't really matter, for the sakes of this video anyway. But people will argue for Kankri that if they even acknowledge that he's being a douche at all, they'll acknowledge that he may be being a douchebag, but it's okay, because he has good intentions, which is an interesting distinction. It's implying that he doesn't mean to be an asshole, he just sort of tripped over a small rock and landed in Douchebag Creek, which I suppose happens, but I don't think it happened to Kankri, because I would not argue that he had good intentions. But even if he did, as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So even if he is trying to help or thinks that he is in the right, which he may very well, he may think he's in the right, but he comes across as sort of Puritan. And I think you should dislike Kankri for the same reason you dislike overly religious people in the real world who try to push their religion down your throat. You know, despite his existence as troll Jesus in Alternian terms, he doesn't necessarily have a strong religion. He certainly isn't affiliated with the motherfucking church, which is the only real religion, barring the following of the sufferer that's mentioned in Homestuck. Except I think it's... I don't really know. I guess it's just those two. I thought of something else, but it turned out to be false. That happens. Sorry. But, you know, it's not necessarily that he's coming from a religious point, except for every parallel ever to his existence as the sufferer. I mean, I'm not denying that that's a fucking thing, because it is. But it doesn't really matter for the point of this, because whatever it is he's fighting for, he's on a moral high ground, and he wants to make damn sure that you're all following that moral high ground. And he may think that he's doing the right thing, but I don't know if that means he's got everyone else's intentions at heart. I guess in a long-term sort of way, in the way that an offensive relative has your good intentions at heart when she tells you politely that you're going to hell for XYZ. She's telling you that so you'll, you know, divert course. But still fucking rude. Someone can believe something is true, and it's still rude as shit. You know, I could go to, you know, a baby shower and go, you know, lots of babies die of crib death. naturally, that's a terrible thing to say, and it would imply that I have no empathy whatsoever if I actually said that at a baby shower. I think it's true, you know, and it is true, but that doesn't mean it's okay to say. And I feel like if Kankri learned that advice, he might be a much more likable character. So, does he have good intentions? I would say no. Even if he does, doesn't matter. So let's move on. Here's some proof that I found that he doesn't necessarily have everyone's best interests at heart. Because I originally tried making this video, and I realized I didn't have any evidence whatsoever. And I don't want to sound like Phoenix Wright over here, but I feel as though it would be amiss for me not to go over some textual evidence. So here's, you know, that timeless passage where he insults Matuna, who has brain damage, for wearing his helmet. It starts off with him saying, he basically bitches at Matuna. I found Matuna's entire existence to be a pretty problematic impediment to the advancement and overall awareness of ableism and its painful, manifold consequences for unabilitied persons. So what he's basically saying is, Matuna, who is disabled, is ableist by existing. But then, you know, he goes on to say, and frankly, I'm not crazy about the helmet either. You know, Matuna wants to know what's wrong with his helmet. Nothing, friend. It's a really cool helmet, and it's a good look for you. But are we now to assume that all those who are stricken with your particular disadvantages will be similarly prone to require such headgear due to falling down and hitting their head frequently? We've just seen that Matuna falls down and hits his head frequently. More than frequently. And it goes on with Kankri acknowledging that, yeah, okay, you need the helmet, but don't you think that could offend some people? Obviously, he's either really fucking dense or he's just gone straight up paladin and has his blinders on to the point where he doesn't realize he's being so thick. And I actually am not going to read all of this either, but I did paste the conversation into a Word doc here that I'm looking at, where, you know, Cronus isn't sure. He, sometimes he might just be saying he's a human to get attention. Maybe he should give it up. And then Kankri basically does the equivalent of saying, well, I hope you're not saying that, because if you are, you're going to hell. And of course, they're already dead, but it's still this horrible moral sledgehammer he bashes Cronus upside the head with. And, Cronus may be a lot of things, but he's not so separated that he doesn't care what his peers think. I would say far from it. Of course he goes, you're right, Kankri. You're so right. I'm totally human. Swag, or whatever it is Cronus says. And so that essentially, from where I stand, proves that Kankri really just cares about things fitting in with his idea of right and wrong. We, as the observer, can see that telling a disabled person their helmet is tacky because it could offend other disabled people is the most ludicrous thing in the world. But it's stuff like that that makes me think that Kankri is certainly an annoying character. Now, I don't hate everything about him, and I think he does have more nuances than I'm sort of implying. Obviously, he has some really sweet moments regarding his preoccupation with Latula, even though she is in a committed matespritship. It's still pretty sweet how he notices these little details about her and stuff. You could call it creepy, and meh, everything Kankri does is creepy. He wears his pants up to his troll nipples. But, there's some stuff about him that I like. I think most of my issues with Kankri come from the fandom's treatment of him, because it's one thing to have an imperfect character and acknowledge that they're imperfect, and it's another to just totally go, see that guy over there? Sure, he's insulting and pedantic, but he means well. Kankri Vantas for Angel of 2014! So, and I'm not saying everyone who likes Kankri does that, and I'm not saying that everyone who likes Kankri is wrong too. I'm just saying that Kankri Vantas annoys the ever-loving shit out of me, and that really is it. So that's the end of my Kankri rantathon, so I guess I'm gonna move on to the next thing, but those are my feelings on Kankri. A little bit of a tool, I would say. Bit of a tool. A little bit obsessive, but not the worst character ever, just yeah, I guess I've said everything that there is to say, so.